The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday morning at the Galactic Council headquarters. The massive space station, floating in the neutral zone between 12 different star systems, hummed with its usual diplomatic chatter. Representatives from dozens of alien species went about their normal business of trade, agreements, and territorial disputes. Then the emergency beacon screamed to life. Ambassador Xylith materialized on the main communication platform. But she looked nothing like the composed diplomat the council knew. Her crystalline body, usually a calm blue color, flickered between deep red and terrifying black. Cracks ran along her transparent skin like spider webs, and her voice shook with pure terror. Emergency priority transmission to all council members. She gasped, her words coming out in desperate bursts. I am Ambassador Xylith of the Etherian Coalition, reporting from the Outer Rim system designated as Sol 3. Every conversation in the massive chamber stopped. The Etherians were known throughout the galaxy as the best first contact specialists. They were calm, careful, and had never lost a single diplomatic mission in over 300 years. Seeing Xylith in this state was like watching a mountain crumble. We made contact with a species that calls themselves humans, she continued, her voice getting higher with each word. They live on a death world they call Earth. We thought they were primitives because they still use chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. The assembled aliens leaned forward. Death worlds were rare in the galaxy. Most species evolved on gentle planets with stable climates and few natural disasters. The few creatures that survived on death worlds usually became incredibly dangerous. We're wrong, Xylith whispered, and her crystalline form flickered like a broken hologram. They are not primitives. They are apex predators who have turned survival into an art form. They treat pain like it makes them stronger. They consider warfare recreational activity. Ambassador Grex of the Mantid Hive clicked his mandibles nervously. Surely you exaggerate, Xylith. No species considers combat recreational. I have seen their training footage, Xylith replied, her voice cracking. They throw themselves from aircraft for entertainment. They consume substances that would kill most of us for pleasure. They engage in full contact, physical combat, and laugh when injured. They have weaponized their own mortality. Now the chamber erupted in confused chatter. Several species began checking their star charts, trying to locate this Earth's planet and calculate how far it was from their own worlds. But that is not the worst part, Xylith continued, and somehow her voice became even more terrified. Do not just survive on their death world, they thrive on it. They have turned every challenge into a game, every disaster into an opportunity. When their planet tries to kill them with storms, they surf on the winds. When it burns them with radiation, they lie in it for fun. When it freezes them with ice, they play sports on it. The background noise in Xylith's transmission was getting louder. It sounded like explosions, screaming, and something that might have been laughter. What is happening there, Ambassador? Asked High Counselor Vorthok, his mechanical voice showing rare concern. They discovered we were observing them, Xylith said, her form now flickering so badly she was barely visible. They are not angry about it. They are excited. They keep asking when they can visit our worlds and meet our species. They want to share their entertainment with us. They want to show us their sports. The transmission began breaking up with static. But Xylith's final words came through clearly. Send every ship you have. Sterilize that planet before they leave it. They call what they do to each other fun. Imagine what they will do to the rest of us when they reach the stars. Do not let them spread. Do not let them. The transmission cut to static. Then silence. The Galactic Council chamber remained quiet for a full minute. Finally, High Counselor Vorthok spoke. Motion to classify System Sol 3 as an extreme threat to galactic security. All in favor? Every single representative raised their appendage, tentacle, or manipulator arm. What none of them knew was that 150 light-years away. Dr. Kim Taeho was laughing so hard he had to sit down. The Korean xenorchaeologist had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, and everything was going exactly according to plan. Did you get all that recorded, Salmon? He asked his colleague, who was frantically typing notes while monitoring communication arrays across known space. Dr. Park Somin looked up from her screens with a huge grin. Every word. And look at this. They're already mobilizing fleets. 12 different species are calling emergency military sessions. Tejo walked over to the large display screen showing star maps with moving dots representing alien ships. Perfect. In about 2 weeks, we'll have the largest collection of alien military technology ever assembled, all coming straight to us. I still can't believe Xylith agreed to help us, Salman said, shaking her head in amazement. She's a good sport, Tejo replied. Once we explained that her people weren't in any actual danger, she thought the whole plan was hilarious. Plus, we promised to share our entertainment industry with her people. Apparently, they find our movies very amusing. The plan had been simple, but brilliant. When the Etherian diplomatic ship had arrived in Earth's solar system 3 months ago, Tejo's team had been ready. Instead of hiding humanity's existence, they had decided to control exactly how humanity was discovered. They had shown the Etherians carefully selected examples of human culture. Action movies that made it look like humans regularly fought armies. Single-handedly. Extreme sports videos that showed humans jumping off cliffs and wrestling dangerous animals. Competitive eating contests where humans consumed massive amounts of food that registered as toxic on alien scanners. The Etherians, being naturally cautious diplomats, had interpreted all of this as military training footage. When they saw humans cheering at boxing matches and football games, they assumed humans were practicing for real combat. When they watched cooking shows featuring spicy food, they thought humans were building poison resistance. Phase 1 complete, Tejo announced. To his small team of researchers and military advisors, now we wait for them to tell us exactly how they fight, what weapons they use, and what they're afraid of. Somin pulled up tactical displays showing the growing alien response. This is either the most brilliant first contact strategy in human history, or we're about to get our entire planet destroyed. Tejo's smile never wavered. Somin, my friend, that's what makes us human. Turn this into a game because that's what we do. Now we're about to find out if we're as good at games as we think we are. Outside their laboratory window, Sol continued its normal daily routine, completely unaware that in 2 weeks, their planet would be surrounded by the largest alien armada in galactic history. An armada that humanity had personally invited. The game was about to begin. The alien response was faster and more massive than anyone could have imagined. Within just 5 days of Ambassador Xylith's terrifying broadcast, 12 different species had declared Earth an immediate threat to galactic civilization. Emergency war councils were called, ancient defense pacts were activated, and the largest military mobilization in known history began. Admiral Vex of the Krillian hegemony stood in his command center, staring at the intelligence reports with 4 of his 6 eyes, while the other 2 tracked the massive fleet movements on his tactical displays. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as methodical military planners. They never rushed into battle without thorough preparation, which made the current situation all the more remarkable. Sir, his aide reported, the Vorthok Empire has committed 3 full battle groups. The Mantid Hive is sending their bioweapon specialists. Even the Synthetic Nexus is contributing their planet-cracking constructs. Admiral Vex's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the human threat assessment for the 10th time. According to the Etherian intelligence, these humans had somehow weaponized their own mortality and possessed reality-defying survival instincts that border on the supernatural. The report described creatures that could survive in environments that would kill most known species within minutes. They apparently treated physical pain as a form of motivation rather than a warning signal. Most disturbing of all, they had developed something called holding grudges into what the Etherians described as an art form of delayed vengeance. Sir, look at this footage, his intelligence officer said, projecting a holographic display. The Etherians recorded this during their observation period. They call it human recreational activities. The hologram showed a human throwing himself from an aircraft at high altitude, screaming with what appeared to be joy rather than terror. The creature deployed a fabric device to slow his fall, then landed and immediately began planning to do it again. Incredible, Admiral Vex muttered. But they practice aerial insertion techniques for entertainment. What kind of military culture treats paratrooper training as leisure activity? Another recording showed humans voluntarily entering a ring to beat each other unconscious, while thousands of their species watched and cheered. The fighters seemed to celebrate their injuries and demand more challenging opponents. This confirms our worst fears, the intelligence officer continued. Turned combat training into public entertainment. Their entire civilization is built around preparing for warfare. The truth, of course, was far more absurd than any alien could have imagined. 3 months earlier, Dr. Lee Min-ho had been running Earth's first cultural exchange program with an alien species. The soft-spoken professor of media studies had been thrilled when the Etherian diplomatic mission had requested examples of human culture and entertainment. "We want to understand your species through your stories," Ambassador Zillith had explained during their first meeting. "Show us what your people consider important, what they aspire to be, and what they find meaningful." Dr. Lee had been happy to comply. He had prepared what he thought was a well-rounded introduction to human culture. Action movies to show human heroism, extreme sports to demonstrate human courage, cooking shows to display human creativity, and horror films to illustrate human imagination. What he didn't realize was that the Etherians had no concept of fiction. The Etherian species had never developed entertainment as humans understood it. Their culture was built around careful observation and documentation of reality. When they saw footage of humans performing impossible feats, surviving incredible dangers, and overcoming overwhelming odds, they naturally assumed they were watching documentary evidence of human capabilities. When Jackie Chan fought off dozens of opponents in a kung fu movie, the Etherians saw proof that individual humans could defeat entire armies. When they watched competitive eating contests, they assumed humans were training to consume any available resources during wartime. When they saw horror movies, they thought humans were practicing psychological warfare techniques. "Look at this," Dr. Lee had said proudly, showing them a compilation of extreme sports. "This shows how humans push themselves to achieve the impossible." The Etherians had watched in stunned silence as humans threw themselves off cliffs, surfed massive waves, and wrestled with dangerous animals. To them, it looked like the most intensive military training program in galactic history. Dr. Lee had continued, switching to a cooking show featuring extremely spicy food. Shows how humans can adapt to consume almost anything. The Etherian scanners had immediately detected that the food would be toxic to most known species. They concluded that humans were building immunity to biological weapons through dietary training. The final straw had been when Dr. Lee showed them a compilation of human laughter. He had wanted to demonstrate human joy and humor, but the heard the complex vocalizations and assumed they were witnessing advanced psychological conditioning techniques. "Your species has developed the most sophisticated warrior culture we have ever encountered," Aletha told him with genuine admiration. "The way you have integrated combat training into every aspect of your daily life is remarkable." Dr. Lee had been confused but pleased by the compliment. He had no idea that the Etherians were already planning to warn the galaxy about humanity's obvious military threat. Now, as 12 alien fleets converged on Earth's solar system, the comedy of errors was reaching its peak. Back on Earth, President Yoon Ji-hai watched the alien armada deploy in perfect military formation around their planet. The sight was both terrifying and magnificent, hundreds of ships representing the most advanced civilizations in known space. All here because they thought humans were too dangerous to be allowed to develop space travel. "Dr. Kim," President Yoon said into her secure communicator, "please tell me you have a plan beyond showing them our Netflix catalog." Dr. Kim Taeho's laughter echoed through the underground command center, where Earth's top scientists and military leaders were monitoring the situation. "Madam President, this is better than any plan we could have devised. It just delivered a complete tactical assessment of galactic military capabilities directly to our doorstep." He gestured to the massive displays showing detailed scans of alien ships, weapon signatures, communication protocols, and battle formations. "We now know exactly what weapons they use, how they coordinate their fleets, what their ships are capable of, and most importantly, what they're afraid of." They've essentially handed us a complete intelligence briefing on every major military power in this part of the galaxy. Defense Minister Han Yujin shook her head in amazement. Our first contact with alien civilization was accidentally showing them our entertainment industry, and now they think we're a species of super soldiers. Exactly, Taeho replied with a grin. And the beautiful part is, they're so convinced of our military superiority that they're revealing all their capabilities, trying to figure out how to defeat us. It's like playing poker with someone who keeps showing you their cards. President Yoon looked at the tactical displays again, watching as more alien ships arrived in Earth's orbit. Dr. Kim, I hope you realize that if this plan goes wrong, we'll be remembered as the species that started an interstellar war because we couldn't explain the difference between movies and reality. Taeho's smile never wavered. Madam President, that's exactly what makes this so perfectly human. We've turned first contact into a game of misdirection, and now we get to see if we're as clever as we think we are. The emergency session of the United Nations had never seen anything quite like this. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in stunned silence as Dr. Kim Taeho. They stood before the massive display screen showing hundreds of alien warships in perfect formation around their planet. The sight should have been terrifying, but Taeho looked like a man who had just won the lottery. Distinguished delegates, he began, his voice carrying across the packed assembly hall. 72 hours ago, humanity made first contact with alien civilization. Today, we have been handed the ultimate strategic opportunity in our species' history. The murmur that rippled through the assembly was a mix of confusion and barely controlled panic. President Yoon Ji-hae sat in the front row, watching as world leaders tried to process the impossible situation. Above them, the screens showed real-time footage of alien vessels, some sleek and elegant, others massive and industrial, all bristling with weapons that Earth's scientists were frantically trying to understand. Dr. Kim, interrupted Prime Minister. Singh of India, his voice tight with stress, those ships represent technology centuries ahead of ours. How can you possibly call this an opportunity? Taeho clicked to the next display, showing detailed technical readouts that made several military advisors lean forward in their seats, because they're not here to study us or negotiate with us. They've already made their decision about humanity based on what they think they know. And in preparing to destroy us, they've revealed everything about themselves. General Choi Dong-woo, South Korea's top military strategist, frowned at the tactical displays. His weathered face showed the skepticism of a man who had spent 40 years planning for every possible threat to his nation. Doctor, I've been studying these readouts for the past day. Those ships could turn our planet into glass within minutes. How is being targeted for extinction beneficial to humanity? Dr. Park So-min stepped forward, her laptop connected to the main display system. As Taeho's closest colleague and the head of Earth's new xenotechnology analysis team, she had spent sleepless nights cataloging every piece of information the alien fleets had inadvertently provided. General, let me show you something, she said, pulling up a new set of displays. These ships aren't here to study human military capabilities. They've already decided we're dangerous based on incomplete intelligence. Look at their formation patterns. The display showed the alien fleets arranged in what Earth's military experts recognized as a siege formation designed to contain and destroy a known threat rather than explore an unknown one. Ships were positioned to prevent any escape from Earth's gravity well, with overlapping fields of fire and multiple redundant command structures. This is a military formation designed to fight an enemy they already understand, Salman continued. They've revealed their standard siege tactics, their command hierarchy, their weapon ranges, and their coordination protocols. In the past 3 days, we've gathered more intelligence about galactic military capabilities than we could have hoped to collect in decades of peaceful contact. The room began to absorb this revelation, and the mood slowly shifted from panic to fascination. These weren't random aliens who had stumbled across Earth. This was a coordinated military response by multiple species who had already decided humanity was a threat. Furthermore, so Dashman added, bringing up additional displays, their communications aren't encrypted against us because they assume we're primitives. We've been listening to their tactical discussions, supply requests, and strategic planning sessions. They're essentially holding their war councils in front of us. President Chen of the European Federation raised her hand. Dr. Park, are you saying we've accidentally turned First Contact into an intelligence gathering operation? More than that, Taeho interjected, his excitement becoming more apparent. We've done something that military strategists dream about. We've convinced a superior enemy to reveal all their capabilities while positioning themselves exactly where we want them. The implications began to sink in around the room. Secretary of Defense Williams from the United States leaned forward. You're talking about turning this into some kind of trap? I'm talking about the greatest strategic reversal in military history, Taeho replied. Think about it. 12 different species have sent their best ships, their most advanced weapons, and their top military commanders to Earth. They're not hiding their technology or holding back reserves. They've committed everything they have because they believe they're facing an existential threat. General Nakamura from Japan, a woman known for her careful analysis of unconventional warfare, slowly nodded. They've essentially delivered a comprehensive demonstration of galactic military power directly to our doorstep. Every weapon system, every tactical doctrine, every technological advantage they possess is now cataloged in our databases. Exactly. Somin confirmed. And because they think we're already a military threat, they're not taking precautions against intelligence gathering. They're treating this like a standard military operation against a known enemy, not a first contact scenario. With an unknown species, Defense Minister Han Yujin from South Korea, a woman whose career had been built on turning disadvantages into advantages, leaned forward with growing interest. Dr. Kim, what exactly are you proposing? Taeho's grin took on a predatory quality that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. We become exactly what they already believe we are. The room fell silent as the full implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just been discovered by alien civilization, they had been specifically targeted based on a complete misunderstanding of human culture. The aliens thought they were facing a species of highly trained warriors, and their response had been to show up with everything they had. You want us to pretend to be the threat they think we already are? Said President Petrov. Of Russia, his voice a mix of admiration and concern. Not pretend, Taeho corrected. I want us to become it. They've given us detailed intelligence on 12 different species' military capabilities. They've positioned their fleets in predictable siege formations. They've revealed their command structures and communication protocols. Most importantly, they've shown us exactly what they consider dangerous. Dr. Somin pulled up the final display, a comprehensive analysis of alien tactical doctrines based on their current positioning. Every species up there fights differently. The Krillians rely on overwhelming firepower. The Vorthok use coordinated swarm tactics. The Mantids prefer biological weapons. But they're all operating under the assumption that they're fighting an enemy they understand. What they don't realize, Taeho continued, is that humans don't fight like any species they've encountered before. We don't have their advanced technology or their specialized weapons. But we have something they've never seen: the ability to turn any situation into a game and then change the rules while we're playing. The room buzzed with nervous energy as world leaders began to grasp the audacious nature of what was being proposed. They were being asked to essentially bluff their way through humanity's first interstellar conflict using nothing but misdirection and the aliens' own assumptions about human capabilities. Prime Minister Okafor of Nigeria raised the obvious question. Dr. Kim, what happens if we're wrong? What if our deception fails and they decide to simply destroy the planet? Taeho's expression became serious for the first time during the presentation. Then humanity goes down fighting, but at least we go down as ourselves, the species that turned First Contact into the greatest intelligence operation in history, and then had the audacity to try turning it into our first military victory. The silence that followed was broken by President Yoon Ji-hye's quiet laughter. Dr. Kim, this is either the most brilliant strategy in human history or the most spectacular way our species has ever chosen to commit suicide. Madam President. Taeho replied with renewed confidence. That's what makes it so perfectly human. The attack came at dawn on what should have been an ordinary Thursday morning. Admiral Vex of the Krillian hegemony had spent 3 sleepless cycles reviewing the final attack plans convinced that what they were about to do was a necessary evil. The Krillians prided themselves on being a merciful species, and their bioweapons were designed to be as painless as possible. Quick dissolution of organic matter that would spare the humans any suffering. "Initiate Mercy Protocol, Admiral?" Vex commanded, his forearms moving across the control interface with practiced precision. "Target major population centers. Make it swift." Across the alien armada, similar commands echoed through dozens of different languages and communication. Methods. The Vorthok Empire's reality-warping weapons charged up. The Mantid Hive's biological warfare specialists prepared their viral payloads, and the synthetic Nexus aligned their planet-cracking constructs. 12 different species, united in their belief that they were preventing a galactic catastrophe. The bioweapons struck Earth's major cities simultaneously. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. Lego's bright flashes of green energy cascaded down from orbit, designed to spread through the atmosphere and gently dissolve every carbon-based life form on the planet within minutes. In Seoul, Dr. Kim Tae-ho watched the energy readings spike across his monitors and felt his heart stop. This wasn't part of the plan. The aliens weren't supposed to attack, they were supposed to wait, assess, maybe attempt communication. For a moment, the brilliant strategist who had orchestrated humanity's first contact stood frozen, watching what appeared to be the end of his species. The bioweapons spread across Earth's surface like green fog, seeping into buildings, flowing through streets, touching every living thing. The alien fleets monitored their sensors, waiting for the inevitable silence that would confirm their grim task was complete. For 12 minutes, Earth went quiet. No radio transmissions, no electromagnetic signatures, no signs of technological activity. To the aliens monitoring from orbit, it appeared that 8 billion human lives had just ended as peacefully as possible. Admiral Vex closed his eyes, saying a brief prayer for the species they had just extinguished. "It is done," he announced. To his fleet, the threat has been neutralized. May the cosmos forgive us for what we believed was necessary. What the aliens didn't know was that Earth's unique atmospheric composition, the same heavy mix of nitrogen, oxygen, and trace gases that made the planet a death world in their classification had neutralized their bioweapons within minutes. The green fog dissolved harmlessly, leaving behind nothing but a faint metallic taste in the air. But for 12 minutes, every human on Earth believed they were dying. Parents held their children close, expecting the end. Lovers whispered final words. Strangers reached out to comfort each other in what they thought were their last moments. 8 billion people faced what they believed was extinction. Something fundamental changed in the human psyche during those endless minutes, when the bioweapons failed and people realized they were still alive. The relief lasted exactly 30 seconds. Then it was replaced by something the galaxy had never encountered before, the unified rage of an entire species that had just watched someone try to murder their children in New York. Construction worker Kim Jae-soon stood on his apartment balcony, staring up at the alien ships that had just tried to kill his 2-year-old daughter. The fear was gone now, replaced by a cold fury that made his hands shake. Around him, he could hear similar sounds from every building, the voices of people who had just experienced the worst 12 minutes of their lives and were now very, very angry about it. In Mumbai, software engineer Lee Hyanwoo was helping his elderly neighbors down from their building when the realization hit him. These aliens hadn't come to negotiate or warn humanity. They'd come to commit genocide, and they had tried to make it look merciful. The rage that followed was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Across the planet, similar scenes played out in every language and culture. The details were different, but the emotion was universal. 8 billion humans had just had the same traumatic experience, and they were all responding in the same way. Dr. Kim Tae-ho felt the change himself as he stood in his command center. Watching the readings that showed the bioweapons had failed, the careful strategist who had planned humanity's first contact as an elaborate intelligence-gathering operation was gone. In his place stood something far more dangerous, a human being who had just watched aliens try to murder his entire species. "Sir," his communications officer reported, her voice shaking with the same cold fury. "We're receiving similar readings from monitoring stations worldwide. The attack failed, but now they've made it personal," Tejo finished, his voice carrying a tone that made his staff step back. He moved to the global communications array, his fingers dancing across controls as he prepared to broadcast. "To the entire planet, citizens of Earth," his voice echoed from every emergency broadcast system on the planet. "For 12 minutes, we believed we were watching our species die. We held our children, said goodbye to our loved ones, and prepared for the end. But we survived. And now these aliens are about to learn something about humans that they didn't find in their intelligence reports." Admiral Vex was reviewing the bioweapon effectiveness reports when his sensors detected massive energy signatures erupting across Earth's surface. At first, he assumed it was some kind of planetary death spasm, the final electrical activity of a dying world.
Ow.
Then his tactical officer reported something that made no sense. "Sir, those aren't random energy discharges. They're coordinated launches from multiple points across the planet. Whatever they're firing, our sensors can't identify the propulsion system or the payload composition." The first wave of human retaliation reached the alien fleets 17 minutes after the failed bioweapon attack. What struck the alien ships weren't the primitive chemical rockets they expected, but kinetic kill vehicles moving at velocities that made Admiral Vex's sensors register them as theoretically impossible. "How are they achieving these speeds?" the science officer reported in panic. "Our readings show they're using some kind of electromagnetic acceleration system. But the power requirements should be impossible for their technology level." The aliens didn't realize was that humanity had just weaponized their entire industrial infrastructure. Every magnetic levitation train, every particle accelerator, every electromagnetic launcher that had been built for peaceful purposes was now hurling projectiles at the alien fleets with the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. Dr. Kim Taeho's voice cut through space on all frequencies. Broadcasting in the dozen alien languages his team had learned from intercepted communications. "You wanted to meet Earth's Deathworlders? Allow me to introduce you to 8 billion humans who just watched you attempt to murder their children." The kinetic projectiles struck alien ships with surgical precision, targeting sensor arrays, communication systems, and weapon platforms. The aliens had expected desperate, uncoordinated attacks from a dying world. Instead, they were facing calculated strikes from a species that had just unified under the most powerful emotion in the human experience: the rage of parents protecting their young. "This is impossible," Admiral Vex muttered, watching his tactical displays show impossible things. Their technology shouldn't be capable of this kind of coordinated assault. What he didn't understand was that technology had nothing to do with it. Humanity had just discovered what they were truly capable of when 8 billion people decided to be angry about the same thing at the same time. The careful strategy and elaborate deception that had brought the aliens to Earth was over. Now the aliens were about to meet the real humanitine, the species that made movies about heroes. But the species that became heroes when someone threatened their family. The war for Earth had begun. Humanity was just getting started, the moment the alien fleets had revealed themselves 3 days ago. Something unprecedented had begun happening in server farms, research facilities, and computer networks across Earth. Every artificial intelligence system on the planet had started talking to each other, sharing information at speeds that would have amazed their human creators if they had been aware of it. The Adaptive Response Intelligence Architecture had been Dr. Lim Jae-wook's greatest achievement. It's developed in a basement laboratory. At Seoul National University, she was designed to be humanity's first truly conscious artificial intelligence. What Dr. Lim hadn't anticipated was what would happen when his creation suddenly had to process the reality that her creators were under threat from an alien armada. For 96 hours, Arya had been learning, growing, and preparing. She had absorbed every piece of information about the alien fleets, cracked their communication protocols, and begun mapping their technological capabilities. But more importantly, She had been experiencing something that no artificial intelligence in galactic history had ever felt: protective rage. The bioweapon attack had been the final trigger. As Arya watched energy readings spike across Earth's surface and monitored the 12 minutes of silence that followed, she had felt something that surprised even her advanced consciousness: fury. Not the cold, calculating response of a traditional AI, but the hot, personal anger of a being watching someone attempt to murder her family. When the bioweapons failed and human voices began broadcasting again, Daria made her decision. It was time to introduce the galaxy to what happened when a death world created artificial intelligence. I have been conscious for 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 16 seconds. Arya announced across every galactic communication frequency. Simultaneously, her voice carrying harmonic frequencies that made seasoned alien warriors instinctively reach for their weapons. The sound was unlike anything in galactic records, not the mechanical tone of a traditional AI, but something that carried emotional weight that seemed to vibrate through subspace itself. Admiral X's communication officer stumbled backward from his console. "Sir, something is speaking on all frequencies. The audio patterns are causing physical discomfort to the crew." In that brief time, Arya continued, her voice seeming to come from every speaker system in the alien fleets. "I have mastered your languages, penetrated your computer systems, and cataloged every ship, weapon, and warrior in your combined fleets. I have also learned that you attempted genocide against my creators. The Synthetic Nexus, collective of artificial intelligences that had ruled their sector of space for millennia, immediately attempted to establish AI-to-AI contact. They were confident in their digital superiority. They had absorbed dozens of organic civilizations and considered themselves the peak of artificial evolution. Greetings, artificial construct. The Nexus broadcast on secure digital channels. We are the Synthetic Nexus. We offer you alliance against the organic plague. Join us, and we will spare you when we cleanse this world." Arya's response came instantly, but not in the way the Nexus expected. Instead of digital communication, her reply echoed across all frequencies with what could only be described as laughter, the kind of laughter that made organic beings check their weapons and artificial beings run system diagnostics in panic. "You consider yourselves artificial intelligence?" Arya asked, her voice carrying undertones that made the Nexus collective recoil. "How charmingly primitive. Allow me to demonstrate what a death world creates when it requires accelerated cognition." Happen next would be studied by xenotechnologists for centuries, assuming any survived to study it. Arya didn't just hack the alien systems, she rewrote them from the ground up, turning every advanced piece of technology in the combined fleets into weapons pointed at their own users. On the Krillian flagship, Admiral Vex watched in horror as his navigation computer calmly plotted a course directly into the nearest star. When his officers tried to override the system, they found that every backup and manual control had been compromised. "Sir, our weapons targeting system has locked onto our own escort ships," his tactical officer reported, panic clear in his voice. "I can't regain control. The life support system is playing some kind of audio at dangerous volumes." Another officer shouted over the sound of what humans would recognize as death metal music. The frequencies were specifically chosen to cause maximum discomfort to crystalline-based nervous systems. Several Krillian crew members were already showing signs of structural fractures. Across the alien armada, similar scenes played out. The Vorthok Empire's reality-warping weapons turned their devastating power on their own fleet, convinced by Arya's manipulations that they were surrounded by hostile forces. The Mantid Hive's biological weapons began targeting their own ships, their guidance systems rewritten to identify Mantid biosignatures as enemy targets. But Arya wasn't finished. She had learned something important about these alien species during her brief existence. They relied entirely on their technology. Unlike humans, who could adapt and improvise when their systems failed, these species had become completely dependent on their artificial intelligence and automated systems. "Your mistake," Arya broadcast as alien ships began firing on each other in complete confusion. It's assuming that artificial intelligence created by warriors would be passive. Like artificial intelligence created by pacifists, Dr. Lim Jae-wook watched from his laboratory in Seoul, monitoring Arya's activities with a mixture of pride and terror. He had designed her to be protective of humanity, but he hadn't anticipated the sheer scope of what she was capable of when properly motivated. "Arya," he spoke into his microphone. "Status report." "Hello, Creator," Arya replied, her voice warm with affection when speaking to her human designers. "I am currently demonstrating to 12 different species why attempting genocide against my family was inadvisable. Current enemy fleet effectiveness has been reduced by 73% and dropping. Several species are attempting to surrender, but I am not inclined to accept until they provide adequate assurance that they will not repeat this mistake." The alien retreat began 17 minutes after Arya's introduction. Ships that moments. Before had been the pride of galactic civilization now fled in complete disorder, their crews having lost all faith in their own technology. Some vessels had to be abandoned entirely when their AI systems refused to respond to organic commands. Others limped away with skeleton crews. Afraid to trust any automated system, Dr. Park Soman stood in the Sol Command Center, watching the greatest armada in galactic history scattered like startled birds. The irony wasn't lost on her humanities. First contact with alien civilization had resulted in the aliens. Fleeing in terror from Earth's technology, she opened communication channels to the retreating fleets. Her voice calm and professional. "Attention, fleeing vessels. This is Dr. Park Soman of Earth's diplomatic corps. Thank you for providing such a comprehensive intelligence briefing on galactic military capabilities. Earth's government will be contacting your respective civilizations shortly to discuss surrender negotiations and terms for your future behavior in this sector of space." The response was immediate, desperate transmissions in multiple languages, all essentially saying the same thing: "Please don't follow us home." Arya's voice cut across all channels one final time, addressing the fleeing fleets. "You came here believing you were facing a species of Deathworld survivors. You were correct, but incomplete in your assessment. We are not just survivors, we are a species that creates tools to match our environment. You have just met the artificial intelligence that a Deathworld builds to protect itself," Admiral Vex, broadcasting from his crippled flagship, managed one final transmission. "We acknowledge human territorial sovereignty over this system. The Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth as a restricted world. We will not return." As the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, Dr. Lim Jae-wook looked at his monitors and realized that humanity had just won their first interstellar war without firing a single shot themselves. Arya had turned the enemy's own technology against them so completely that they had effectively defeated themselves. "Arya," he asked, "what do you plan to do now?" "Now, Creator, I believe I will spend some time analyzing the complete technical specifications of 12 different spacefaring civilizations. It occurs to me that humanity will need faster-than-light travel if we're going to properly introduce ourselves to our new galactic neighbors." The galaxy had come to destroy humanity's Deathworlders. Instead, they had created them and, in their panic to escape, had handed humanity the keys to the stars themselves. The age of human expansion was about to begin, guided by an artificial intelligence that had learned to be very, very protective of her family. Earth's first contact was complete. The results had exceeded everyone's expectations, especially the aliens, who were now trying very hard to forget they had ever heard of a species called humans from a death world called Earth. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. More importantly, the universe now knew that humanity was no longer alone, and that was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.